Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our SpeakOut series. I'm Rhiannon Wicks, and I'm the coordinator of the Bolt Foundation and the moderator for today's career discussion focusing on the area of supervisory and trade roles in forming. The Bolt Foundation has a very simple but important mission: to inspire the next generation of construction professionals right here in the Greater Toronto Area. One way to do that is to ensure that young people have the information that they need to choose a career that they are passionate about and successful in. This series facilitates the discussion on some of the in-demand careers in construction and how young people can get started. Our panel is made up of industry professionals, including employers and senior staff, to provide useful insights into the education and training requirements, physical demands, what to expect day to day, and advancement opportunities within the specific construction career. I want to acknowledge and thank our series sponsor, RBC Future Launch, for their generous support of this important initiative to help close the information gap and to get more youth interested in construction careers. Let's hear from our sponsors now.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Beckles and I'm the Vice President of Social Impact and Innovation here at RBC. Today, youth are the most unemployed age group in Canada, with almost 800,000 young Canadians not currently in employment, education, or training. Canada's skilled tradespeople that have long been the backbone of our economy are more critical than ever, and so is solving this sector's main challenges: the underrepresentation of women and immigrants, the need to double down on digital training, and the ongoing stigmas around trades careers. And while these challenges are significant, so are the opportunities. Through the RBC Future Launch partnership with Bolt, we aim to ensure that you understand what opportunities are available in the skilled trades industry and how to get started in a career that you are passionate about. Because at RBC, we see a future in your future.
So today's discussion focuses on the field of forming and some of the career opportunities available. Let's take a look at what the concrete crew does on a high-rise construction site.
Now it's concrete pour day. Concrete is discharged from the trucks into a pump on the ground level. From here, the concrete travels up through a long series of steel pipes up to the slab formwork up above. The pump is operated by this technician who adjusts the flow and the position of the boom arm using the joysticks and buttons on this remote. The forming crew workers spread the concrete evenly and check for thickness using this wire gauge. Another worker is using a vibrator seen here that agitates and rattles the concrete to help it flow better around the rebar and evenly up against the formwork. This worker here is using a tool called a bowl float. Together with skill and experience developed over time, this action smooths out the concrete slab here into the flat and level surface that is required. A few hours later, after the concrete sets up some more, these workers pass over the surface again with a machine called a power float, or as they call it, the helicopter.
So with that great visual of the work, let's meet our industry panel. So I'm going to start on my left here. We'll introduce Frank, and he can go ahead and, tell us how you got involved in concrete forming.
Good morning, Rhiannon, and thank you for having us. Shortly after high school, I signed up to the Labour's Union. From there, I was batched out to a job site in Toronto where I was told to meet up with my foreman, Gord. Fast forward 25 years later, Gord is now one of my two business partners. Through the couple of years that I was a labor, I had developed a passion for the carpentry aspect of formwork, so there I switched over to the Carpenters Union. I did my apprenticeship, became a full licensed carpenter. Shortly after there, I became a lead hand, and a couple of years after that, a foreman as well, and just started to run my own crews. Throughout the 25 years, I've had some great mentors such as Gord and other great carpenters that have taught me a lot of the trades along the way.
That's amazing. So if anybody tuned in yesterday, and I know I have some Westview people on the other side here, you met Gord yesterday, who was sitting where Frank is sitting today, to put a little visual to how, Frank got started and some of, people that he's worked with. I'm going to jump off script a little bit here, and I'm just going to ask our two friends to my left as well to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Joshua Kudo. I'm a carpenter lead hand. Hi, my name is Michael McKeas, and I'm lead labor.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to start with Josh. And what are some skills that would help you get started working in carpentry?
Some basic skills to get started in carpentry would be knowing how to use and read a tape measure, both metric and imperial. Basic use of a hammer, a skill saw, an electric saw, and knowing how to use and read a level.
Awesome. So do you find that that's something that you're going to like, would somebody teach you that on site, or do you need to sort of know that a little bit before you get there?
I got taught on site. I was
Okay.
very green when I started. I knew nothing about construction. So as the days go on, you start to learn slowly with the tools and everything, right?
Awesome. Good. It's nice to know that there's learning opportunities available so that you can get started and you don't have to try to play with a saw at home, which we don't recommend. I'm gonna, Mike, do you need any training to start off as a laborer?
There's no direct training needed to start off as a laborer. You pick up on things and how they're done by more experienced laborers.
Okay.
Kind of learn as you go. The only training needed is the safety requirements.
Right. Very important. So I noticed that you're both affiliated with unions as well. So we have Local 27 and Local 183.
183.
I think one of you is associated with two.
Yes.
Awesome. So one thing that I learned the other day is that you can be associated with two unions. So I just wanted to sort of bring that to light because I know 183 and 27 focus on different sectors, right? Residential and ICI. Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you can have your hands everywhere. Mike, did I ask you that already? No. What are some basic skills that will help you with your trade? See, we're very informal around here.
Basic skills that will help you with your trade is knowing how to use simple tools like sledgehammers and wrecking bars, and how to correctly use them to avoid injury. With time and dedication, you will learn like little tricks of the trade that will help you in the long run.
Awesome. That's great. And you picked a lot of that up on site as well.
100%.
Yeah, from senior laborers and, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. So I'm going to pose this question to both Josh and Mike, and we'll start with Josh. How do the elements, heat or cold, we get both here in Canada,
That's great.
Impact the work you do?
It'll vary. So, for example, in the summertime with the heat, it's very important to stay hydrated, especially if you're starting. It's hard to gauge how you are outside in the heat. That can catch up without a shadow of a doubt. Like you think you'll be fine 1 minute, and then the next you're not. So you got to stay hydrated. Make sure you don't get to that point where heat stroke or overexhaustion is going to catch up to you.
Absolutely. That's good.
In the winter, it's important to wear multiple layers of clothing just so that you're able to take on and off as the day goes and as the temperature fluctuates. Also, having warm and comfortable footwear is a must. And I would recommend having an extra pair of socks or gloves just in case yours get wet.
That's a great tip. One thing that Gord mentioned yesterday is that he hates working in the heat because you can't take off enough layers. But at least in the winter, you can layer up and you
On
can,
and off as the day goes.
absolutely. And I find that's very true, just sort of in Ontario in general, right? Like you just want to, in the winter, you need to stay warm. And in the summer, you need to try to find ways to stay cool and keep your core body temperature down. And you can imagine how difficult that can be when you're working outside all day, right? So staying hydrated. Yeah, absolutely. Sunscreen. Like, please wear sunscreen, you know? So another question I'm going to pose to both Josh and Mike. Is there an apprenticeship program in your specific trades?
So right now for high rise, there is a 4-term, 6-month apprenticeship program. So once you're done, it'll probably take you about 2 years to finish. Once you've completed, you'll pretty much be at the top level of your trade.
That's awesome. And that's done through which union typically?
183.
183.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you said that's for condominiums
Yeah, for
specifically,
high-rise, yeah,
residential?
absolutely, for high-rise,
Awesome. That's great. And then Mike, what about your trade?
Yeah, and if you show good workmanship, your employer may accelerate your pay grade so that you get to the top rate sooner than the 2-year apprenticeship.
That's awesome.
Just got to show dedication.
Is there a way to fast track? Because I know in some trades, like it's based on hours, right? So are you able to, if you put in overtime and things like that, are you able to fast track a little bit and you can,
Overtime
It's not
will help.
necessarily the full 2 years.
Yeah, overtime can always help you out with the hours, obviously, and if they see that you have the hunger and the drive, obviously, foremen and companies can help you get there quick as well.
That's great. I think the great thing about apprenticeship is that you really get to learn, right, as you go, and there's less pressure to know everything that you think that you should know, because you're going to learn it as you go, right? And you're going to learn it in real time with real people, rather than, on a screen in a classroom. Don't get me wrong, classroom learning is great too. And I know a lot of unions have training centers where you're going to go and learn things as well. But on site is where you really get that, that real life experience.
Everyone develops at a different pace, right? So it varies on the apprentice and how they take to their trade as well.
Absolutely. The passion.
Yeah.
You'll hear a lot about passion in all of the episodes. And like I said
it's a passionate
yesterday,
field.
totally, like everybody is so into their trade because this is what they chose, right? And you can jump from, one trade to another. Maybe you don't love one so much, but if at some point you're going to find that trade that just like really calls to you, right? So, so Frank, what are the average hours worked daily, weekly?
A typical workday is 8 hours a day, so 40 hours a week. We typically start at 7 a.m. and complete our day at 3:15. Summertime, speaking about weather again, providing that noise bylaw exemptions are intact. We try and start a little bit earlier just to try and beat the heat, so we might do a 6 a.m. shift until 2:15, because like we had discussed earlier about the heat after working the second or third day in plus 35, 40 degree weather, it definitely takes a toll on the body.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the earliest you can start on sites typically?
Like I said, it would vary.
Anytime?
7 a.m. depending on the region of where you're working.
Okay.
Every different municipality has different bylaws. They vary from Toronto to Markham to wherever it is. So if we're within the allotted time frame, we're okay to start typically 7 o'clock Monday through Friday. But if we want to come in and make a noise maybe an hour earlier, we would have to apply for a noise exemption permit.
Got it. Okay. See, another thing that I just learned. So, Josh, I'm going to pose this to you, and then we're going to go over to Mike as well. What are the typical wages for a carpenter?
This time, carpenters are full rate. They're making about $45 an hour.
Okay.
If a carpenter is considered really good, as we said earlier, and there's a certain aspect of work that they really zone into or they're excellent at, they can also be put into as a lead hand in that position, and they can always get a little more.
Awesome. So that's like a supervisory role, would be like a lead hand.
Lead
sort
hand,
of?
yeah, you got your little crew. Yeah, you're obviously always under the foreman, but
Yeah.
there's a little crew, you have a little more responsibility just to make sure that your tasks get done.
Got it.
Yeah.
So would you report to the foreman, sort of like give
End
them
of
a
the
little?
day, you give
yeah.
them like the brief down. It's
Okay.
pretty much for myself. Beginning of the day, I'll see my foreman. He'll tell me what he needs me and my little crew to do.
Yeah.
We'll go crush it, give a nice push on that section, and then go back to him and report, hey, this is all done. We're good to go for the next
Perfect.
task.
That's great. So there's other levels, right? So it's not just foreman. Like that's your only option to move up, right?
Yes,
There's
right.
like other things you can do. That's great. Awesome. What about you, Mike?
Full rate labor makes $43 an hour. There's also extra training that allow them to make more or earn more.
Okay. And is that training done through the union as well then?
Yes,
Yeah.
most of the training would be done through the union.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. And then, Mike, I'll stick with you. What are some examples of some extra training that a laborer may have to earn extra wages?
So some examples of extra training would be becoming a signal person for the crane,
Okay.
learning to operate concrete vibrators, become a concrete finisher, or even becoming a lead hand with directing laborers on what has to be completed or what tasks have to be completed for that day.
Awesome. So similar to like carpentry, where you're going to be able to report to the foreman.
Exactly, same thing.
That's awesome. So we learned a little bit about crane operators yesterday and how, we assume that you can see everything, but really you're so high up that everything looks pretty small, and that you're talking to, signal operators on the ground, and they're helping you sort of complete your job, right? So that was interesting to learn. And so then that would be an extra training piece.
Exactly.
In addition.
That would
Okay.
allow you to earn more wages.
That's awesome. Cool. So do you get to work with Dylan ever?
I've been on sites with Dylan,
Okay.
I'm currently not, but
Okay.
yeah, I have been in the past.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I love I love that when you sort of start with a company and, obviously you're with a union, right? So if you're out of work, they'll find you work typically, right? If I'm not mistaken. But it's nice when you're able to work for a company and, you know, you're affiliated with so many different people and you get to work with so many different people that even between like yesterday's episode and today's episode, we can make connections with, you know, with people, right? So that's always awesome. Frank, is there any mandatory safety training needed before an apprentice starts work?
Yes, there are three courses required by the Ministry of Labour before anyone starts work. So working at heights, as well as WHMIS, which stands for Workplace Hazardous Material Information System, as well as MOL 4-step, other people know it as 4-step, or Health and Safety Worker Awareness. The last two, so the WHMIS and the 4-step, you're able to do online. The working at heights is where you'll learn how to properly put on a harness, properly use a harness, when to be tied off. So it's a life-saving device that you are putting on. So it is an 8-hour course with an instructor. So it gives the time allotted for the safety aspects of it.
Absolutely. The hands-on training portion that we talk about, right?
That's
Where it's
right.
like there's things that, even though you're learning that aspect in a classroom, it's still very interactive, right? You need to learn how to essentially like fall properly, right?
Hopefully not get to that point. So
right, but it's
we
like,
try
but
to
there's
do
a way to do that.
That's right.
There's an important, you know, and I know I was in on a class the other day for working at heights training, and I saw these equations on a board. I was like, so that all means something. And these are all things that you need to know on site.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
we
like,
typically try to practice fall restraint, so it's not even getting to that edge, so you're never put in that fall.
you're never close enough to be able to.
Yeah, so better safe than sorry for sure.
Definitely. When I've been on the construction sites, you see all the different spots where, you know, workers are able to tie off safely, and you realize that like you don't, when you're tied off, you can only go so far, right? And that's the point,
Correct.
is that you're not going to accidentally trip. And, you know, especially if there's no balconies up, there's no windows up, there's no, you know, you're very vulnerable, right? So it's good. Safety first.
That's right.
Josh, what does an average day look like for a carpenter in high-rise forming?
So an average day for a carpenter in high-rise forming is pretty much, we're responsible for setting up wall or column forms.
Okay.
Prior to closing them, we have to make sure that they're plumb and that there's form release on it. Once they're closed, they'll be set up for later on in the day where they will pour concrete in them. And then once that's done, if there's any scaffolding or fly forms that we can continue building or setting up for the units, that'll pretty much work as the unit ceilings once they're poured.
Okay. So carpentry is not just woodwork.
No, not just woodwork. Yeah.
I feel like that's a very common misconception, right? Is that carpenters work with wood.
Not only, you're working with a lot of other...
Lots of materials,
yes.
right? So you're like concrete, I'm assuming some like metal studs here and there, and right? Like aluminum,
Yeah, aluminum whalers, beams, yeah.
That's awesome. Josh, what would you say is the best and worst part of what you do?
Best and worst part. Best part of what I do is I get to build with my hands. I get to construct and see what's done at the end of the day. Like it's a really great feeling to know that you're starting off in a job or you're starting off your day with nothing, and then when you leave and you're going home at the end of the day, you can see what you've built, what you've poured, what's going to be there for longer, like way past when you're gone, right? It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And I would have to say the worst part's winter.
Fair.
I'm not a fan of winter. I get cold quick. I look like the Michelin tire when I'm at work. But like Mike's previously said, it's all about layering up and kind of getting your body used to it. My hands get cold quick. That's it. So
that's fair.
But the love for the job outweighs the cold.
Yeah.
So I can't complain.
Do you find that it's like, especially if you're working in the winter, you're like waiting for those windows to go in?
I never get
It's
to see
just
them. We're never there. We're always above.
We're always above.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So in the winter,
It's like a tease. Like,
I'm waiting for the sun to come out. Is what
Okay.
it is, right? So that's my window.
got it. So, well, like again, like I had no idea that, you know, and I know that there's always like what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like a system in how the work is, right?
Yes.
So it's like you're setting up for the next trade, the next trade, the next trade. So like I didn't realize that you're never behind the glass.
We're first.
We're building the concrete structure, so by the time those glasses come in, we're 8 to 10 floors above,
Got it.
continuing.
And it gets windier as you
and
get
it gets
higher.
windier as you're going up. That's right.
That's awesome though. Like good for you. That's hard work, right? And but like that just goes to show how much you love your work.
Love it.
Right? Like
I
you'll
love my
do
job,
it
yeah.
even when the wind's, you know, blowing at you in the middle of winter. you're there every day.
100%.
And you're making it work. And you're just blowing on your hands and like
Well,
with the
that-
heater
yeah,
close
yeah.
by and like
A lot of this, right? So.
absolutely. So Mike, what does an average day look like for labor in high-rise forming?
So laborers are responsible for dismantling the formwork of walls and columns, as well as the underside of floors, and pouring after pouring concrete, and it's got to its strength. Laborers are also responsible for organizing material and full cleanup on site.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can, I walk on a site and I always expect to walk into chaos, right? You're assuming that there's going to be things everywhere and it's going to be a mess. And I don't think I've ever been on a site that's actually like a mess.
No.
Things are in its place and presumably they're where they are for a reason, right? So it's like you've got, all the rebar lined up where presumably that's the best spot for it, right? But it's not scattered. It's not, there's a method to the madness. And I think that just goes to show how safe people are when they're on site. They're not leaving piles of things for you to trip on. And I guess that we can thank the laborers for a big chunk of that, right?
I'd say it's like
that it's
organized chaos.
Yeah.
That's the best described.
like my home. I'm gonna. So Mike, well, let's stick with you and you tell me what's the best and worst part of your job?
I'd say the best part of being a laborer is just the diversity of work on a day-to-day basis. I'm always learning something new, no matter how much experience I have. I also love working with heavy machinery such as tower cranes and concrete pumps like we saw in the video, and other heavy equipment. Almost reminds me of toys I used to play with as a child, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say the worst part is dealing with the outside elements, such as rain, wind, cold, and extreme heat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very common, aspect of that most people don't love about is just all the variations in the elements that you have to experience.
It's the excessive.
Yeah.
This winter's been great to us, but it's the excessive cold, the excessive heat, the wind gusts.
Yeah.
If you have a consistently windy day at 20 kilometers or 30, you can deal with that. Then it shoots up to 60, and that's the part that
Absolutely.
that I guess keeps everybody on their toes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think, again, it just goes to show how much, people love their trades, right?
Yeah.
Are passionate about their trades because you're willing to do it regardless of the weather, and I know that I would love an area, and I said this yesterday, I would love an area where I could work outside, but I can guarantee you I would not choose to work outside if it was plus 40 or minus 40.
Yeah.
I would hang out in my cubicle and, because that's, I would have the option.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't have the option.
We don't have the option.
And you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you love it.
Love it.
That's awesome. That's passion. I think that's the key word is passion.
Definitely.
Frank, what are a few of the things that drive your passion for the concrete forming industry?
Like I said, I've been doing this for almost 25 years now, and I truly, truly still love what I do. I'm like a little kid in the sandbox, if you will. I'm at the point now where we're given drawings at the beginning of a drawing. We're walking in there, it's a big hole in the ground, and we leave 6 months later or a year later, and there's a structure that we've helped build. So we bring people's visions to life. You have your architects and your engineers, and we actually create what they've drawn out for us. One of my favorite building stories is I helped build the birthing unit where later on my 2 children were born in.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's one of those. The kids are kind of sick and tired of hearing the story, but
Probably.
it's one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Even my wife. So she was going into labor, and we parked the car. I have her in a wheelchair, and I'm walking her into the hospital. And just as we're walking in, I'm showing her all the retaining walls and everything else.
Which is exactly what she wants to hear at that time,
yeah,
of course.
no, she had her
Yeah.
own agenda. She wasn't too thrilled with me detouring a little bit. So I had plenty of time to enjoy what we had created while she was in there. But yeah, no, that's something that it hits home with me. It's something that I take a lot of pride in.
Absolutely. That's so cool. I would love to walk to a building and be like, I did that, I did that, I did that. Like right now I can walk to a building and be like, oh, the developer I work for.
Did that.
And then all of the hundreds of people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into that building, they did that. That's incredible. I would love to know what that feels like. I do not have the skill, to be able to do that. But I think it's wonderful. Like,
It's very rewarding. It's
Yeah.
very rewarding. Like I said, we deal with the elements, we deal with certain things, sometimes tight schedules, but at the end of the day, you still have a passion. It's passion driven, and you still truly enjoy what we love doing. It's very rewarding at the end for sure.
that's awesome. Great. So I'm going to pose the same question to all three of our friends here, and we'll start with Josh. Would you recommend the forming industry to members of your friends and family?
Absolutely. I've been in a bunch of different job situations. I did post-secondary education for HR. I worked payroll. I did retail. I was managing stores, and I don't get a thrill like I do in construction. Like I said, going back to seeing what you get to build, seeing your end work at the end of the day. It's such a joy and such a thrill for you. I've recommended it to a bunch of people that I know already, and plus side for me, I get to work with my brother, so it's
That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
I love that. My sister works downstairs, so I
Oh,
get
nice.
that.
There you go, right? Yeah.
The same feeling, right?
It's
Where you're just
awesome.
like, it's so nice to be able to work with family.
Oh, 100%.
As long as you get along, you know.
Yeah, I know. We're like this. We're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
that's awesome. Cool. Mike, what about you?
Absolutely. I currently work with friends on the job now that I've brought in. It's just a secure job with many benefits and lots of opportunity for growth within the industry. So a lot of open doors.
Yeah, definitely. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely would. I actually got his brother into the
Perfect.
forming aspect, so it just continues. Yeah, the forming industry has been fantastic for myself, and I speak on behalf of my peers as well. They've allowed us to provide for our families for many years now. Not to mention, whatever you learn on site is yours. That knowledge is power, and you can apply that knowledge in whatever specific trade to your everyday life. So hanging up those pesky little shelves in the house, whatever else, some carpentry training might come in handy there. But yeah, no, it's as I said, there's a lot of rewarding, a lot of rewards, and some great colleagues, great friends that we make along the way.
That's amazing. And then, so if you're also affiliated with the union, then you also have access to vacation pay and benefits and pay raises, and all of these things that just come automatically.
A good pension.
Yeah.
It's starting off at a younger age. Yeah, and it definitely pays off after 20 or 30 years of working in the trade.
Yeah.
You're set up pretty good when it comes time to retire.
Definitely, and I think that's really important for young people to understand, is that if you're able to get into a career that has a pension, that is setting you up for success when you retire, right? So a lot of the time we don't think about retiring because we're young, and we're like, we're not retiring for like 50 years, it doesn't matter, but it does matter. So if you're interested in the trades, and this is, and anything from forming has, piqued your interest, Local 183, Local 27 are the local unions for, this area. And they have great resources online where you can look it up and you can see. And it's definitely something that's important to consider. And I wish, like we spoke about all this earlier, is like we wish we'd known when we were younger.
100%.
Right? Like that like our high schools said, hey, like there's all of these careers available to you, and they have all of these perks and all of these benefits, plus you get your like daily satisfaction and your hard work, and you go home and you're so thrilled.
Yeah.
And not every day's perfect, but
No.
not every day's perfect in any job. Right? So it's like you really get to find that love, that passion, that, that's just setting you up for a good future.
Yeah, no, I've been very, very fortunate along the way. Like I said, I've had some great mentors along my journey, and I'm still learning from them. Like,
Yeah.
maintain, be humble, and continue to learn each and every day.
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's great. Any words of wisdom that you want to like throw out there to any of our youth?
I would say, don't be intimidated at the construction site. So as you had said earlier, it looks chaotic, but yeah, it looks chaotic from afar, but as Mike had said, it's fairly organized chaos when you get on site. There is a lot of activity, there's a lot of movement. At the end of the day, once you start your apprenticeship, you're going to be learning a lot from your fellow peers. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how you learn. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Ask the questions and learn from those mistakes. Just like any career, if you have a passion for it, you never stop learning.
Right.
So just continue to grow within that trade, and it's not a job at the end of the day, because you enjoy where you're going. It makes getting out of bed early mornings a little bit easier to go and do your job. Yeah, 100%.
They mentioned that they're on site, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and I had to come in at 7:30 yesterday, and I was like, holy moly. Like, I'm a 9 to 5, right? So, but you get used to that lifestyle,
You do.
right? And that's what you're, you know, and
do.
if you have to commute, like I have youth, you know, that have commuted from Brampton to downtown Toronto just to be able to participate in, you know, things that we have happening down there. And you can imagine how long that commute is. So if they need to be there for 6:45, they're probably leaving their houses at like 4:45, 5 o'clock, right? So these are the things that you, I don't want to say sacrifice, but you know, this is the effort that you put in to like set yourself up for your success.
It's part of
right?
the learning and development. Like
Yeah.
if you're always looking for that job that's around the corner from your house, you're going to be going through many of different companies. I
Absolutely.
stayed fairly loyal to the company that I learned my apprenticeship for, gone as far as Niagara Falls for a job, and Barrie or wherever it led me.
Yeah.
But like I said, you put your head down, you're there for growth because you know that the people that you're working with each and every day have your best interest, and they're going to develop around you, and it's paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially given that you literally started like at the
a
bottom
labor, yeah.
and you worked your way up.
Yeah,
Right. And I think that's
and-
important to do though. Right.
I had a passion for it, just
Yeah.
like anything. Like you could be whatever career choice you choose. This, I just love creating and I love learning. And the more I asked, the more I was taught, and just developed from there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Josh, any words of wisdom?
Like Frank said, don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to make mistakes. When I started, we used the term on-site green, so very new, didn't know anything about construction. Only had my brother in construction. And the best thing that I can say is don't be scared to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
Those mistakes make you a better carpenter later on. It teaches you about the trade. It teaches you ways to do it. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Everyone's got a different way. And when you zone into your way of making it work, the rest of the day just flies by.
Yeah.
It's all about putting in that time. Again, don't be scared. Ask the questions. Ask. Knowledge is power, and especially on site, you don't want to be left out in the loop, and you want to know more than one way to do something.
And what the next step is.
And
And
the
so,
next,
so,
yeah,
be
100%.
intrigued.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite sayings, knowledge is power. And I always, like, I'm such, like, I always tell, like, I'm a forever learner. And, like, every day I walk in this building, I learn something new. And I think that when you're open, especially in a career such as the trades where it's evolving, right? It's evolving with technology. It's evolving with, you know, different formats of doing things. And when you're open to taking that information in
Yep.
and learning and perfecting your trade and your passion and your skills, there's always room for growth, and there's always room for that kind of improvement,
that's
right?
right.
And it's only setting yourself up.
And the best thing is, like, with any trade, especially ours, like, don't be complacent.
Yeah.
Like, have that passion. I know we said passion a lot through this panel.
Yeah.
Have the passion for it.
It's a reality.
Respect the trade, enjoy the trade, love what you do. It's how many people can say they work outside all day?
Definitely.
Right? I love the
Yeah.
summertime. I don't mind the heat. I love being out there.
Yeah.
I love the plus 40. I'm getting working on my 10. It's great.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, like, just have that passion and enjoy what you're doing, and don't be scared. Don't be intimidated. Like Frank said, it's a whirlwind when you're walking in through those gates your first day. But if you keep your head down, do your thing, stay focused, you'll be fine.
You'll learn. Yeah.
That's amazing. Mike, what about you? Any thoughts?
I'd say it's well worth taking the first step. Like,
Yeah.
I know the first step is the hardest, but once you're there, it just becomes a breeze and it's just a flow. And it's just becomes easy.
Yeah.
And second nature.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
Well, even
That's
as we
awesome.
had discussed off camera earlier, even if you're coming in at a labor position, but you find that carpentry is an aspect that you enjoy, or cement finishing, there's got to be 5 or 6 different trades in the formwork division alone, right? So you don't necessarily have to be married to that one trade, like, but it opens up another venue, other windows for opportunities or other trades that you might be a better fit for.
That's great. That's great advice because, yeah, especially when you're on a site and all of these things are happening, right? You're not the only trade on the site at the time. Like, you get to see all different kinds of trades working. And, you know, it's like every day is a learning opportunity and an experience, especially when you're new, right? And you're like, oh, I think I really, really love carpentry. And this is something that I've been passionate about since I was younger. And you get into it and you're like, oh, maybe it's not quite for me. And then you see, you know, like a sheet metal worker and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Or, you know, or a crane operator and you're like, I want to do that. Or, you know, you want to be a laborer and you're like, I get to do so much, you know, then you're open. You've just opened your door just so many possibilities.
Just walking on set.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the forming industry specifically too, just because there are so many opportunities.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
different trades, like I said, 5 or 6 of them just wrapped in the trades, like laborers, carpenters, crane operators, layout, rodmen, cement finishers, and then you have the other cement finishers that come do grinding and patching after we're up and ahead. So, and that's just the formwork trade alone.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah, so
up until probably last week, I heard forming and I think concrete.
Yeah.
Right, and I think like the foundation,
Yeah.
and then you don't realize all of the other aspects that are
go into it,
involved. Like it's wild.
yeah, I think Gord said it yesterday. We're about 60% of the workforce
Definitely.
on that site. And it's,
Yeah.
we come in big numbers because there's quite a few of us to build the structure, and then
Of course.
everybody else comes in after us. So
Especially when it's like a 50-foot or a 50-story structure, right? There's just a little work that goes
Yeah,
into
it's a
that
little
one.
bit.
You know, just a little bit. Well, anything else? I think we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
Any last minute thoughts before we say goodbye to our friends on the other side here?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you learned as much as I did. And if you missed yesterday's episode to sort of tie in some of these gaps that we were talking about, by all means, feel free to watch it. It's on our YouTube channel. And thank you. And we'll see you all soon.